home. My God.
Okay, we'll get started. Okay, before we do, is there any questions about anything from last week? Or yeah.
Sir, can we go ahead? Can we go review just the assignment too?
Yes, that's
Yeah,
absolutely.
sure. So let's start there.
Because I have few questions about the assignment, so when I go through the lecture, and I try to understand the assignment too. So there are some confusion raised in my mind. So before starting our assignment, I think it's better and raise the question and get ready.
Did you start working on the other project?
So I realized too that the assignments are kind of like due in the middle of class, so maybe I'll try and change that for assignment 2.
No problem.
But anyways, yeah. What are the questions?
So they're both due on Friday the 13th.
Oh yeah, that's random too.
It's not a
Freaky
lucky
Friday.
Not like number 13?
It's like a superstition. Friday the 13th is unlucky
Yeah,
day
yeah,
or
yeah.
something.
Oh yeah, unlike 13 is always possible, but I'm
Okay.
So we're moving it Friday.
Do you have questions specifically, or you just want me to go over it, or?
I have specific questions.
Yeah. Okay.
So in our class, we saw that there's 4 core questions.
So-
Core questions.
Yeah.
Based on the scenario. That is definitely based on the scenario of thought. But here, 13 core question. Sorry, 7 core question.
Yeah.
So I go both of the websites, the Ghostery and EFF.
Yeah.
Ghostery, there are a lot of things.
Yeah.
If I go through the website, it takes a lot of time to step by step. But if we just consider the second one, if I anyone choose or me choose the second one, very basic website, only the ad blocker,
Mm-hmm.
nothing else, no other things or nothing, and it's a thing like a one pager like that. And everything is explained, what is this, so many explanations. And the first one is like a general professional website.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, these 7 core questions, for the second cases, it will be tough. If I just consider the EFF, then the 7 core question will be a little bit tough to identify. The first one is okay, because there are a lot of things, so we can make a lot of questions there, a lot of basic questions. It can be more than 7.
Sure. So first, just let me cut you off to say that you only are studying one of the 2.
I understand.
Yeah.
But I go both, just to see how.
Yeah, I see. So my advice would be to use Ghostery for that reason, because there's so many different features.
Yeah.
There'll be more things to test. The real reason I give this is just sometimes people object to corporate software instead of open source. And I'm always scared that one class, because we've done this assignment for many years, but I'm always scared that one day it won't be free anymore.
Okay.
Because you never know with software. So I always like to have just a backup just in
So
case.
it's
But
an alternative solution.
yeah. So mainly my intention would be that you do it on Ghostery. I just didn't want to write this assignment and lock you into having to do Ghostery. But
Okay.
my preference would be, I envision you using Ghostery.
Okay.
But this is just sort of a backup in case for whatever reason you.
If it is like a
Yeah.
free version, okay, because I went through both of this and I was getting confused at how, if I select the second one, how I get the 7 core question, because it's a very basic website. There is no lot of options, there are very limited options.
Sure.
the EFF.
Yeah.
But the Ghostery, we can make more than 7 core questions, because this is a lot of things, a lot of questions can come in the mind.
Yeah.
So this is my question that if I choose the second one, that will be difficult. So you mentioned that the first one is the priority, so okay.
Yeah. And you're only doing the sort of the ad blocker one itself. They have a bunch of different products,
There are 4.
but
And there are 4
Okay.
in this website.
Yeah.
So ad blocker is one of them.
Yeah.
And another is like the spying and something and some other things.
and I don't really care about blocking ads, although they call it an ad blocker, but the main thing these have in common is about tracking your cookies. So the main thing they'll show you is when you go to a website, who's tracking you
Yeah.
on that
So
website.
this is what you want to focus on for this?
Not necessarily, I can't limit you to that, so you can do anything that this offers, but when we first started doing this assignment, Ghostery was a cookie tracking tool.
Yeah.
Then over the years, it sort of evolved, and now they try and do a bunch of stuff. So that's just, I'm just going with the evolution of it, of the tool itself. So I don't want to say anything is off limit. You can do anything you want. But.
And if we provide screenshots or photos, it's okay, right?
Yeah, yeah. So again, I don't need a screenshot if you can say it in less words, but sometimes showing the screenshot is easier. So it's sort of at your discretion. So
But it's going to take up more space, like you said.
yeah, yeah.
So if we put a screenshot, instead you put it on a separate page?
Yeah, so I'm not actually that picky for a separate page, but think of it more like if you put all your screenshots like end to end, the text wouldn't be more than 3 pages, and the screenshots would be about 1 page.
Okay.
Yeah. So no one's like with rulers like measuring things and counting, and I know it does say you put it on an appendix, but you can put it in line if you want. The main motivation for limiting is just we have a TA, she has to read all of them. It's not so bad now. Like a few years ago, our classes were like 100 students, but
Okay.
even
It's a
still,
lot of
with
work.
like 30, it's if everyone's doing 10-page reports, that's 300 pages. That's like a small textbook that you have to read.
Okay. For sure. Cool. Yeah. Thank you. That helped me.
Okay. Other questions about the assignment? Yeah.
Should we consider cross-browser difference in our evaluation? If we use different kind of browser, we need to specify what kind of browser we use.
Yeah, so I would envision it that you would just lock into one browser and just say I'm doing it on this browser. But if you wanted a core task to be like, now Alice, the user, sits down at her work computer and it's a different browser and maybe she wants to synchronize her settings and things like that, you could make that kind of like into a core task of trying to maintain this plugin. Even if you have 2 copies on the same browser, how easy is it to, once you get your settings on one, to transport them to the other kind of thing? But then cross-browser would be even harder. So, yeah. Other questions? Okay. Okay, so for the lecture, we're going to switch gears again. So we started by talking about Stride. Then we talked about evaluation framework, so that's a general methodology. Then we drilled into the UDS as the evaluation framework, and we looked at the U part, the usability. So that's what we've done so far. Now we're going to go back and we're going to do another high-level methodology called an attack tree. Okay, so compared to evaluation frameworks and Stride, an attack tree is also high level. What does high level mean? It means that you can apply it to anything. So if I'm studying software, if I'm studying hardware, if I'm studying a process or procedure, this is something that should work across all of them. So it's not specific to like if you're doing software, you might do static analysis or something that's specific to software. For evaluation framework, we have many solutions. We're comparing them, trying to weigh the pros and cons. For Stride, we pick one solution and we're trying to think of all the security threats against it in the different categories of threats. And then with an attack tree, it's kind of like even narrower, where we're going to take one system, one security property it should have. And then we're going to brainstorm every possible way to attack that system, okay, that we can think of. The attacks themselves will be both. Sometimes we distinguish between an attack and a threat. So a threat is like the potential for an attack. Attack is like someone actually did it and it worked, kind of thing. So a threat is sort of a hypothetical attack, and then an attack is like a realized attack.
So threat of vulnerability?
Yeah, so a threat's like a vulnerability. Yeah, but even that like is slightly different. So all 3 of them mean slightly different things. Like, say I have a way of attacking a system, but it's not vulnerable, then it's not an attack. It's a threat, it's not an attack, and it wasn't vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
And then similarly, you could have,
Potential vulnerability.
Yeah, you could have a vulnerability, but it was never attacked, like no one realized it. So they're slightly different things, yeah. But anyways, even though we'll call these attack trees, you can think of them as threat trees. So I'm willing to entertain threats. They don't have to be something that someone actually did. It just has to be something that's like a plausible possible attack that you could potentially do on a system. Okay, some people do call it a threat tree, but attack tree is kind of more common. And you can use Stri to think about, like, are there spoofing attacks? Are there tampering attacks? Like, what are the different kinds of attacks themselves? And what I like about this is the more you know about what you're analyzing, the better your attack tree can be. So even though it's a high-level methodology, it has the capability of getting really low-level. So to prove that point, we're going to do an attack tree, and it's going to take us 3 weeks. So this class, next class will all be on just one single attack tree. Okay, and I'm going to teach you a lot of the detail of what we're attacking. I'll show you in a second. Okay, the deliverable is kind of like a visualization of all the different attack vectors. It looks like a tree, so the middle of the tree will be what you're trying to achieve. So I'm trying to break this property of this system. And then as you spread out from that, there's all the different ways you can think of as attacking it. And some of them will have like sort of common ancestors, and so they'll get organized in a tree. This will make a lot more sense in like 5 minutes when we see an example of it. And then when you go all the way along a branch to the end, that's like the attack. Okay, so the attack is the story that you tell yourself as you start in the middle of the tree and you go all the way to a leaf node. And what else? If you have two attacks that are very similar, they're not the same attack, but they're similar in their approach, they're going to be close to each other in the tree. If you have two attacks that are completely different, doing completely different things, then they'll be far away in the tree. And a way that, I'll give you an example, but a way to like kind of fill out the tree is you start with the root of the tree, which is the adversary's goal, and you just say what stops the adversary from doing it. Okay, what actually stops them, and then you'll think about like, oh, there's this defense mechanism that's in place, and then you say, okay, how do I break that defense mechanism? And then you say, well, you can't break that because of this other thing, and then you say, well, how do I break that thing? And then if eventually you get through all the defenses, then you'll end up with an attack in the tree itself. So you can sort of think attack, defense as we go through. Okay, so let's do an example just to make it clearer. All right, so this is a parking system. I park, I get a ticket on my way in, right? And then when I leave, I have to scan it, pay, the arm goes up, I drive off, all right? So my goal is to get out of this parking lot without paying.
Usually, like for 1 hour, you park for free.
Okay, so that's good. So what can you do with that? Besides park for free for an hour?
Park, and then you have to validate your ticket with somebody in the building.
Yep.
They scan it, and then when you go to the machine, then you just put the machine certificate inside.
That's correct. Yeah. So I want to leave without paying though. So that's fine. If I'm there for a short window of time,
Yeah.
I can leave without paying.
Yes.
What about a longer? Yeah.
Auto gate.
Okay, so describe that.
Like somebody else leaving and you move closer to them and try to leave before something else.
Yeah, okay, so the arm goes up. Some people have like, I don't know, a trailer behind them or something like that. And so the arm isn't going to come down in the middle of them leaving. And if you have two cars and they're really close to like bumper to bumper, it doesn't look any different than a trailer. So the two cars can go through. So tailgating is one, yep.
Yeah, that's one.
Yeah.
Professor, what if we use a Flipper Zero device to scan the...
Okay, so what we could do is we could try to mess around with the actual scanner itself. So I have this ticket, and in this case, Flipper Zero is more like RFID kind of things. But if I had some device where maybe there's this barcode on it, maybe I could read it. Maybe the fact that I paid is written into the barcode by the machine. So what I could do is I could read the barcode. I could find the field where it says I haven't paid, flip it to I have paid, and now I can put the ticket in and it would open. Okay, so that's, yep.
No car.
Yeah, you could have a low car, so I didn't think of that one, but you could, more generally, you could try to evade the arm, right? So you're talking about going under it. You could drive through it,
Yeah.
right? Like that works, right? So some attacks you can sort of do once. So like you drive through once, but the second time they're not going to let you in. And then some attacks might have like follow-up consequences, like going to jail. They're getting charged, but yeah. You could try to drive around it. So like why is there cement here and there's this like bollard? Is that, yeah, thank you. Why are all these things here? They're physical security. They're trying to,
So that you don't drive.
yeah, they're trying to prevent you from driving through. But what if you hop the curve here? You know, you had a Hummer or something like that. You know, there's maybe ways that you could physically get out.
If you have a motorcycle, maybe it's easy.
Sure. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, in the back.
Professor, barcode uses digital signature, so if we can get the private key, we can read.
Okay, so barcodes may have some cryptographic protection on them. This is something we'll come back later. Eventually, we're going to talk about airport security. I can tell you just by looking at this that there's no cryptographic security on this because it's too small. So like once you put a signature, signatures are kind of big. And so you couldn't fit a signature into a QR code this small. So you don't even have to worry about signatures. It's not going to exist. But if there were a signature in place, then yeah, you would have to steal the key.
So Professor, if it doesn't have a signature, we can recreate the barcode again?
Yep. So there's two models. This actually goes to assignment 1, right? Model 1 is like whether I paid or not is somehow on this ticket here. So like it's physically on it. The only way you can do that is with a magnetic barcode. Yeah. The other system is that this calls a database and the database knows whether I pay or not. And the barcode is just a pointer to the database. And in that case, I can do whatever I want to the ticket. Now I could change the pointer. So I could try and point at someone else who has paid. Right? So there might be attacks like that. But any kind of like tampering with the ticket, so there's different ways that you could tamper with it, but that would be a valid attack. I have to be careful because I need this to get out. Otherwise, I'm going to have to use one of these attacks.
Like take a bat and just.
Yeah, so any sort of physical, yeah. What else? Okay, now let's go back to what my hint was. My hint was like, what just stops you from leaving? It's kind of an obvious question, but like, what is it that's stopping you? Okay, so the arm is stopping you. Okay, so how do we defeat the arm? Let's just zero in on the arm. So we have tailgating is a way of defeating it. Driving through it or around it, that's a way of defeating it. Is there anything else that we could do?
We can remove it.
Okay, so removing it, yeah, going under or around kind of thing. Those are all valid. Okay, same thing, yeah. So aside from a physical, like physically doing something to it.
And imagine it doesn't exist.
Sure, you could try that. Yeah.
So Professor, if we have physical access to the cable, we can like do, because the arm's just receiving a command to open and close
Okay, so how does the arm know to go up or down?
with the command.
Yeah, so there's some sort of signal or something that's sent, right? So if we could somehow intercept that or make it happen, is there any way to manually make it go up?
I don't think so.
Usually there's like a key or something that like the operator, if they're in the booth, they might have a key, right? And so they could make it go up. What if the power goes out? No one can leave till the power gets back on. We have an ice storm, power's out for 3 days, no one can get their car out.
No,
Definitely battery or.
Okay,
backup.
there could be some sort of backup system, but let's say there isn't.
Yeah, there must be a way for somebody.
Then they're going to manually open it, right? Okay, so there's two things there. One is it proves the point that you can manually open it, okay? So what do I need to manually open it? Maybe a key, right? How do I get the key? Picture, right? Just it's sitting on the person's desk, they have it on their keychain. I don't know, I take a picture of it, I 3D print the key. Now I have the key. What if, and the other thing I want to say is, okay, when the power goes out, they open, right? But they're not collecting payment because there's no power, right? So you have a choice there. When the power goes out, you have a failure. So we call that failure mode. And you have a choice. You can fail in a secure way or an insecure way. So the secure way of failing would be to fail closed, where the bar stays closed, right? That's good for your finance, but people are going to get frustrated with it and they're not going to be happy, right? Or you can fail open, right? So fail open is, there's a failure mode, it's an exceptional circumstance, so we're going to turn off security, okay? When safety, public safety and things like that come into play, lots and lots of systems fail open, right? Think of just a building. Are the doors locked? Yeah, maybe. What if the fire alarm is going off, right? Now all of a sudden there's doors that are normally locked, but now they're open or whatever, right? So failure modes are something that you can use, or something an adversary can use to their advantage, right? Triggering failures. And this idea of fail open or fail close we'll see 7 times before this course is over. Okay, so that's pretty good on the ARM. The other thing that's stopping you is just paying, right? So there's the payment system. So is there a way to attack the payment system? So we talked about like maybe you could hack it or breach it somehow. Maybe you could tamper with the ticket. You could use counterfeit money. So denial of service could help. So in that case, you might say, well, I tried to pay, but it's not working. So that's kind of like a fail open again. So if the internet connection goes out, right, the payment, they can't do the internet or their credit card or whatever, are they going to say, oh, you have to wait here until we fix it? No, they're just going to say you can leave, right? So if you have a signal jammer or something like that, you could try and do that. One thing I want to go back to is this idea that you can park maybe for, you said an hour, but I would say like maybe it might be more like 10 minutes or something.
Yeah.
A lot of parking lots, it's like I go in and I realize it's full.
Medical places, they think it's up to an hour. But
It could-
maybe not.
Yeah. So it depends on the policy. So sometimes it's free because, they don't want you parking there long term.
Yeah.
And then sometimes it's just free because you drive around the parking lot, you realize there's no parking spots, now you want to leave.
Yeah.
They're not going to make you pay to have just saw that it was empty. Yeah. So how could we exploit the fact that it's that you get 10 minutes for free?
Could keep going and coming back. Yeah.
Okay, so let's work with that. So even simpler, I'm about to leave, and right before I leave, I just go up to the machine and I take a new ticket. It's 1 minute old, and then when I leave, I give that ticket. Right? Okay, does that actually work, do you think? It seems almost too easy, too good to be true.
No.
So why don't we think it works?
Because you have the previous ticket.
Well, no one knows that, right?
There is like a minimum time.
But they record the vehicle.
Okay, so there's security camera, surveillance, all of that type of stuff, but setting that aside, yeah.
There's like a sensor.
Okay, yeah, so generally when you pull in, there's going to be a sensor, and it's going to try and sense that there's a car there, and it's not going to give a ticket out. Because of that attack, it's too simple, right? Now, the sensor might be a weight sensor, okay? So how do you evade that? So again, let's go through the chain. So I want to get out without paying. I have this ticket, and I don't have to pay if I can get this ticket, right? It's a fresh ticket. It's only 10 minutes. If I can get my hands on that ticket, I can get it out without paying, okay? So now my goal is to get that ticket. I walk up to the machine. I can't get the ticket because my car isn't there, or there's no car there, okay? So how do I attack that? Okay, so you could wait for a car to come, or you could have a friend pull up with their car, right? You get the ticket, but then instead of them going in, they just back out. Yeah. You could have 10 friends, and you all stand there, right? And hope that you weigh as much as a car, and then you pull the ticket out. Okay. Another crazy attack is what you could do is I could get a ticket and I stay here for 8 hours, so I have to pay, I don't know, $25, $30, right? But what I do is I wait, when I'm about to leave, I wait for someone else to come in. So they get a new ticket and I say, I want to switch tickets with you, okay? So I'm going to take your new ticket, I'm going to get out for free, but you are stuck with this $25, $30 ticket, okay? But the good news for you is you can do the exact same thing. So you'll stay for as long as you're staying, and then when you're about to leave, you'll wait for the next person to pull in. You'll swap tickets again. Okay, you'll get out for free, and it forms a chain. And so nobody has to pay until the very last person, right? And the last person, there's usually a daily max or something like that. And so you could have like tons of people coming and going, and everyone just pays the $25 at the end of the day or whatever the daily max is. Yeah.
Are we assuming that they are not buying the tickets to the cars?
No.
Or if the tickets are being, connected with the cars, like let's say this car owns this ticket, so this
Yeah. So in general, is there a binding?
There's a camera sometimes.
So agree. So there is a surveillance layer on top of everything. So anything you do where they realize it, they have to realize it first to review the tape.
I don't know. There's a
Yeah,
there's
no.
automatic like taking camera that will, I don't know if you find or if used in parking. But that's
Did
the
you
way.
not link the ticket with the license plate?
So that's where I was going. So I don't think I've never been in a parking lot where it's clearly like there's a license plate reader on it. Some parking places, when you park, it's actually not based on the ticket; it's based on your license plate. So you go to the terminal, you type in your license plate, you pay, it goes to a database, and then you don't need a ticket anymore because it's tied to your license plate. And that is definitely a more secure way of doing it than with a ticket. But it still is vulnerable to a bunch of the attacks that we came up with. Okay, other things we can think of? I think we did pretty good attacking the system. Okay, so let's say we want to do an attack tree. What we're going to do is we're just going to put all those attacks in a tree. Okay, so pretty simple. So if I think about what stops you, I might say, well, there's the robotic arm, or like all the physical stuff, and then there's kind of like the payment. And so I'm either going to attack the arm or I'm going to attack the payment system. And so if I want to attack the arm, I can drive around it, I can drive through it, I can tailgate another car, I could trigger a power outage, it will fail open. There's an attendee that has a key, they can open it manually. So if I can get the key or tell them a good story about something, then they might let me out. Yeah.
What happens if somebody pulls a fire alarm?
Yeah, so the fire alarm, it could fail open. It depends on it. Yeah, so it might be that simple. Yeah. So here's some pictures, just someone driving through. Here's like the worst, like robotic arm in the world, right? Why is this so bad? So you can see everyone just drives around it on the grass. And this is just like a 3D printed key. So normally if you can get a photograph of a key, even like an iPhone, it doesn't have to be like a high res photo. If I can just get a photograph of the key, I can 3D print essentially the same key. And even if I don't know the width of the key, I can print 10 copies with different widths and one of them's going to work. Then we could evade payment. So on the money end, I could have counterfeit. We can also go through stride. So like one thing's repudiation. So I could just say I did pay, and they can't really prove whether I paid or not. Like I could say, well, I did pay, and try and get out that way. One way that I've gotten out for free, although it was an actual accident, is with these types, when there was a barcode, sometimes I would fold it and put it in my pocket. But if the fold goes across the barcode, then it's like doesn't work anymore. And then again, they'll just kind of let you out because there's nothing you can do about it. But it's also the kind of thing that would only happen once, right? If I do it if I come up every day and I always have the folded ticket, right, then the story will change. And that's in general with repudiation attacks. So if I deny having done something, like I go to Amazon and I say I never got that box, they'll be like, okay, we'll comp you for free the first time. But once I do it 10 times in a row, then all of a sudden, there's a fraud investigation or something like that. And then I could try and get a fresh ticket. And let's assume that it's a weight sensor. I could have lots of friends. I could do this chaining attack, or I could get someone to pull in and back away. Okay, is this every attack possible? Not necessarily, right? So this is just sort of a fun example to get you thinking. But anyways, so here's the whole tree, and you can see that say driving through the arm and driving around the arm, they're kind of similar attacks, right? So they're close to each other in the tree. But driving around the arm and doing this chain attack, they're like sort of completely different, so they're far from the tree. Sometimes when you start seeing attacks, like I'm like, okay, I can do something physical, I can tailgate. You see other patterns, and you're like, okay, there's another attack here, kind of. So that's why like putting it into a tree is sometimes beneficial. The main reason you put it in the tree, though, is just to communicate it to someone else. So you're writing up your security report, you want to hand it off to someone else. It's a nice deliverable, right? The person can look at it and they can go through it and they can say, okay, I'm really curious about this, but I don't really care about this side of the tree. And then it kind of tells a story as well. So if you start at the root goal, it's kind of like, I want to leave parking without paying. How am I going to do it? Well, I'm going to evade the payment. But why can't I evade payment? Well, I have this ticket, right? And I haven't paid, and the ticket doesn't know that I paid. I know I'll get a fresh ticket, then I won't have it paid. But why can't I just get a fresh ticket? Well, there's this weight sensor, and so I'm going to get all my friends to stand on the weight sensor, and then we'll get a fresh ticket, and then you can run it backwards. So I have my friends. The parking lot thinks I'm a car. I press the button, I get the fresh ticket. Now I have a ticket that is actually like that I don't have to pay for. So I've evaded the payment, and now I can leave the garage without paying.
Actually try this.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
This is an hour.
So just remember the surveillance cameras and things. Yeah. Okay, questions about this simple attack tree before we jump into a more complicated example? All right. Okay, so we're going to do a longer example. What we're going to do is we're going to think about a network protocol, so something that gives us network security. It's called HTTPS. It's the thing that when you go to a website, you see usually typed in. So for example, I'm on Moodle here. You can see I have HTTPS://. And so that's different from HTTP. With HTTPS, I have encryption on the channel. So someone that's in the middle, in theory, shouldn't be able to read what's going on. And with HTTP, there's no encryption. It used to be the case that there would be a lock icon that would appear, but that's changed now. Oh yeah, sorry, I guess you can't see that. Okay, but anyways, it's the HTTPS here. What do the words mean? So HTTP is just a protocol for like going to a website and asking for the website, and then the website sends back the contents of the website. Okay, so the language that your computer speak is called HTTP. SSL or TLS is a bunch of cryptography. I'm not going to assume you've taken a crypto course like 6110 or 6120. So we'll try and explain everything without dealing with the cryptography itself. But the cryptography is coming from SSL, TLS. If you put the two together, you get HTTPS, which is secure HTTP. There's different versions of SSL. So in 95, the first version came out. It was developed by Netscape, I believe, maybe in collaboration with IBM. And it was a sort of company policy. So they had the first browser, and so they were the first ones to implement it in their browser. Then other browsers copied it. And then eventually people realized it was too important for one company to be in charge of. So we want to turn it over to like kind of a big nonprofit organization that's going to run it. So there's one called the IETF, and they do all sorts of internet work. They changed the name from SSL to TLS. And then now we have 1.0, 1.1, 1.2. 1.3 is the current version. It was standardized in 2018. And 1.4, people are debating now like what changes should be put into 1.4, and eventually it will become the released version. Okay, what does it look like? How do you know the difference if you're on an HTTP page or an HTTPS page? Okay, so the first thing is the indicator itself. So you have HTTP and HTTPS. There's a slight technicality here. So if I type in HTTPS:// and then put the URL in, what I'm doing is I'm telling my browser to try and do an encrypted channel. And generally that will happen. So in that case, HTTPS here means that I'm on HTTPS. But there's a corner case where I try to do it and it fails. My browser will still show me HTTPS here because that's what I instructed it to do, but it's going to tell me something else to say that it failed. Okay. Yeah, so it's going to say not secure. Okay.
There's also most of the time on Chrome and at Firefox, there's like a padlock.
Exactly. So the padlock is sort of the old user indicator of it. So now they've changed. So I'll show you the current one and I'll show you the old one. So yeah.
Some also like tell you that this site you're going is not secure. You want to continue, or you want to go back. There's always like a point.
Yeah. We'll talk about that. Don't worry. We'll get there. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the current, this is in Safari, but most browsers do the same way. If you see nothing, then you have an encrypted channel. And if you don't have an encrypted channel, then it will flag the fact that you don't have one by saying not secure. Okay. The old thing, the legacy UI, was that you have a lock, and that means HTTPS is indicated. And if there's no lock, that means it's not secure. Okay. Now, what's the difference between these two, other than the word not secure versus a lock? What's the other difference? Say it louder.
I said one is more intuitive.
Okay, so definitely this is more, not secure means a lot more, right? A lock, I'm not sure what that means exactly. Okay, so it's better to say in words, right? And there's one other difference. It's kind of subtle, I guess, but I don't think it's that subtle.
Sometimes to print like a yellow color or something?
Yep, so we'll get there too. So that's coming. Yeah.
I mean, one of them is indicating that it's secure, the other one is saying the opposite.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So in this case, what's the default? Remember, defaults matter, okay? So the default is you don't see anything. In the new system, if you don't see anything, that means it's secure, okay? In the old system, if you don't see anything, that means it's insecure, okay? So is it better for users to have to go looking for something secure? Or is it better to warn them when something's not secure? It's better to warn them when it's not secure, right? It's easier to miss an indicator than to go hunting for an indicator. In this legacy UI, you always have to look for the lock. Was there a lock? Was there a lock? Was there a lock? Here, you go to so many websites that when you go to one that actually isn't secure, it jumps out at you, hopefully. And you're like, oh, that's not secure, okay? So this is a better UI, yeah.
Even like, not just that, but usually the browser by default, if the website is not secure, it's going to give you a warning, and then you have to sort of click on advance and accept the risk.
Yep, so we'll talk about that. Yeah, so that happens it's a more unique scenario than just you go to an HTTP website. So that's that's actually what happens when you try to go to HTTPS and it fails. Okay. Then it's going to give you a warning, and trust me, we'll talk about that. Yeah. Okay, so that's how you know now, and it used to be a lock. Sometimes I'll keep saying like you see the lock. I mean HTTPS is on just because I'm so used to it because it was like this since 1996 or 94 or whatever. But anyways, they also changed it just to normalize the idea of HTTPS. Like it should be normal. Like before, when they show the lock, it's kind of like, oh, it's special. Right, encryption's on, it's a special case. Someone went out and they did some stuff to like make it so that encryption was on. Whereas here it's more like like the normal cases that encryption's on. And we did go from a world where encryption was almost never used to a world where encryption is always used, even on websites where you don't think it would necessarily matter. Like I go to Concordia's homepage. Why do I care if that's encrypted or not? But it's encrypted, yeah? And we'll talk about why that switch happened. Basically comes down to like two events, one called Firesheep and one person called Edward Snowden, who we saw a video of earlier. But we'll get to that in due time. Okay, how do you end up on an HTTPS page? Okay, so like say I like this idea of like having my traffic encrypted. So I want to use HTTPS. How do I sort of get there? So there's a couple ways. One is I could explicitly type it in, HTTPS://. Then my browser will at least try to do it. A lot of times I'm clicking on links. So I don't get to websites. I don't type URLs in hardly anymore. I'm either opening a bookmark or I'm going to Google. It's redirecting me to it. So if Google sends me to a website, do I go to that website over HTTPS or over HTTP? And who makes that decision? Okay, so there is no default. So it will, or if there is a default, it's Google's own policy. So that choice is solely in Google themselves. So they are sending me to the website, they're putting the link in, and because I got the link from them, they decided, do they want to link to HTTPS or HTTP? And I'll just go. Now, Google by default will definitely send you to encrypted sites if they're available. Yeah, generally speaking today. It wasn't always the case. So it used to be the case that, for example, Wikipedia had both an HTTP version and an HTTPS version. Google would send you to the HTTP version, not the HTTPS version. And the thought there was that there was a performance hit to using encryption. Because now we have to encrypt everything. It takes a little longer, and we don't want the servers to get slow on Wikipedia. But today we have encryption that's built into hardware. And so the speeds of doing things over HTTPS or over HTTP are negligible. There's no difference. So there's no performance difference at all. So you might as well use HTTPS. And then there's like a weird set of circumstances where somehow your browser knows that that's a website that should go over HTTPS. So it might know this one of two ways. One way is you're using a browser called Chrome, and Chrome is made by the company Google, and the website that you're going to is google.com. Google knows that their own sites are over HTTPS, so they'll hard code that into Chrome itself. Okay? And there's a mechanism where not just for those websites, but say you're a big bank, like your RBC, you can go to Google, like a personal connection, like call them up or whatever. I don't know what the process looks like exactly, but you'll talk to their security team. Your security team will talk to their security team, and you'll say, I want encryption on by default in Chrome, and then they'll do it for you. So if anyone even tries to go to HTTP to that bank, Chrome itself will stop it, and it will redirect to HTTPS. Okay. Now you can also do that for your own website, but you're not going to get that phone call to Google and get Google to change Chrome for you. Okay. But what you could do is you can do the kind of renegade version where you advertise in the headers of your website the fact that you want to be only accessed over a secure connection. You don't want an insecure connection. And what will happen is Google will crawl the internet, and when they're crawling it, they'll notice that your website is advertising this, and then they'll take it and they'll put it into Chrome, which is called pinning. Okay? But if you ever get in the situation where, for example, for some reason you can't do HTTPS anymore, you're stuck because like no user can come. Chrome will not let the user go to your website over HTTP. Okay, so you have to be careful when you start pinning down things, and you can pin it down more specifically. You can start pinning down like little details of how you want the connection to look. But if something happens in the future and you can't satisfy that anymore, then no one can access your website. So anyways, you have to be careful until the pins expire, but usually they last like a year or something like that. There's another form, which is I go to HTTP first. The server says, I'm happy to speak HTTP, but I'd like to speak HTTPS with you. So I'm going to redirect you over here. Okay, so you do an HTTP first, and then they redirect you to HTTPS. They basically send back the HTTPS address. Then you go and you connect to HTTPS. Okay, so it's sort of a three-pass thing. The problem with that is if there's an adversary in the middle, they want to see what you're talking about. They're not going to let that redirect happen. Okay, so they're going to see that the website's trying to redirect you to a secure communication. They're going to drop that redirect. And so you'll never get that redirect. Okay, so that's why it's much better to start from HTTPS than to try HTTP and then get redirected to it. And we'll see an attack. So the SSL strip is that attack.
The redirection is from the website or the browser?
So the redirection is from the server, the website itself. Okay. So I go to Concordia, I say, give me the homepage. And Concordia says, well, wait a second, I want you to connect to me over HTTPS. So it sends that back as a response. Go to this address instead. and then my browser will go to that address. It happens instantly, so you don't know it as a user. It just boom, 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 and now all of a sudden you're looking at the website and it's HTTPS.
And you don't even notice it.
You don't even notice it. So like we can try it. It probably will redirect, but we'll just try it. Okay, so I'm typing in, I don't know if you can see that, because
Yeah.
let me move this down. All right, so I'm going to go to http concordia.ca. And then after I hit enter, you see that I got switched to HTTPS. Okay, so it just redirected me, and you didn't notice it, right? It happens like almost instantly.
Is there a way to force HTTP?
HTTP, not really. No one wants to force it. That's the thing. Yeah, you could configure your browser to
You
just
could do,
ignore it. But
There's ways for like testing in a testing environment, because there's some exploits that the thing is what, like for example, which was it? There's a few exploits that like the SSL strip that like take away the HTTP.
yeah. So they'll try and downgrade you.
But certain times the browser won't even open the page, right?
Correct. Yeah. So if it's pinned or preload, so it'd have to be one of these conditions.
Yeah.
Then it wouldn't. But if it's a redirect, then it would.
And even certain websites like Facebook and stuff like that don't even allow this.
Exactly. So the way they don't allow it is with this preload.
Okay.
Yeah. So Facebook's big enough that browsers know
Yeah.
that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
How could the adversary block it in this short time?
So computers work instantly, right? So they also, I mean, the server has to read your request, think about how it's going to respond, craft the response, and send it to you. So if a server can do it in the blink of an eye, an adversary in the middle can also do it in a blink of an eye. Yeah. So everything digital is fast.
So it's
Instant.
like a sensor or something.
No, it's just a computer, but yeah, just a server or whatever. But it doesn't have to be, yeah. Anything like any router, any middle box can do that. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about HTTPS itself. So what we sort of mentioned, it's this sort of encrypted channel. So the way I like to think of it as sort of analogy is it's kind of like a secure tunnel. So I have a tunnel and it's between me and the server. And what I'm trying to protect against is, we call it a man in the middle. It could be a woman in the middle. But anyways, that's the standard, the terminology from the 1980s. So we'll just continue to call it that. But the adversary's in the middle. They're reading your communication. They're on the wire. Okay. How they get into the middle, that's like another big topic that we won't cover. Yeah. So it could be some sort of spoofing attack or things like that. But we'll assume that they're in the middle. Okay. And the promise of HTTPS is it doesn't matter if they're in the middle. Okay. Well, we don't care if they're in the middle because
they
they
can't
can't see anything anyways, right? Okay. So that's what we want. We want to live in a world where we don't have to worry about these people in the middle because we have secure tunnels. Then it doesn't matter. Okay. But what we'll see over the next 3 lectures is that we can't always be that like casual about it. Okay. What is this tunnel doing? What properties is it trying to give us from a security perspective?
Integrity.
Okay.
And confidentiality.
Okay. So there's a couple things it's going to do. It's going to do more than one thing. So the big thing that we mentioned is like this idea of encryption. So that's privacy or confidentiality. So whatever information I'm sending over the tunnel, could be a password, a credit card number, an email, whatever. Email's sort of a special case, but we'll talk about that later. But like a password, credit card, the person in the middle can't read it. Okay, so we call that confidentiality. So you cannot read data even if you're on the path. The second was integrity. So this one's a little more subtle. You don't always think of it. But integrity says that if the adversary's in the middle, they can still make modifications to the traffic. So your mental model should be like the traffic kind of gets scrambled up. So they see this scrambled up traffic, so they can't really read it. But if they want to go and change the scrambled up traffic into something else, they can do that. Okay? So they can change whatever they want. And message integrity says that we can't stop them from changing it, but what we can do is make sure we can detect it. So if I get a message and it was tampered with or it was modified, I'll know that it was modified, okay, at a cryptographic level. So I'll have a cryptographic property where yeah, basically there's no way an adversary can tamper with it without it becoming detectable. Okay, so those are two properties. There's one more.
Who detects any modification?
So either side. So Alice will send it, and she'll basically put like a little code on the end. It will go through, and then when Concordia receives it, before it starts reading it, it will check that code. And if the code is okay, then it will read it. And if there's a problem with the code, then it will assume that it was modified. It's not always an adversary. It could be noise, or like it could be some like just like random stuff, errors that happen in the middle. But if it's modified, then it won't believe it. And it will just tell Alice to send it again, essentially. And then the same thing, every response from the server is tagged. And then Alice is looking at the tags before she reads the content itself. Yeah. And then for those of you who know cryptography, that's a MAC, which is the crypto thing that gives you that property. But
So if you add like JavaScript to that, like a JavaScript that's gonna have a malware or redirect to another site or something like that, the Mac will detect that?
Yep, yeah.
It will.
Yeah. So this is important for that exact reason. Like say I'm downloading, like we downloaded Tor, right? How did I know I got Tor? Well, I told you last class, I have an HTTPS connection to Tor, right? And so I know that the software that I received is bit for bit exactly what was sent by that server because of this property. Okay, so
Digital
yeah.
signatures and HTTPS or no?
Yeah, sort of indirect. Yeah. So they're not
So it could also provide integrity, right?
correct. Yes. Yeah. 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 So don't worry about the crypto details so much. But yes, that's correct. Yeah. Okay, back to the property. So I can't break into the tunnel, and whatever's sent to the tunnel, you know, it comes out the other end intact, or I can detect if it was been modified. There's one other property I need. Okay, what does that mean? It's a beautiful
to
word.
Confirm the identity of the person.
Okay.
Data origin integrity.
So put in like your credentials?
Okay, so authentication generally means I know that you are who you are. Somehow you prove to me who I am. Okay? Who's proving to who they are? Is Alice proving to Concordia, or is Concordia proving to Alice, or both?
Both.
Okay, we could live in a world with both, but HTTPS doesn't work that way in practice. Okay? HTTPS will only authenticate the server to the user. It has no idea who you are through HTTPS itself. The way it figures out who you are is it asks you for a username password. Then it figures out who you are. Okay? We could live in a world where we do authenticate the user as well, but we don't for whatever reason. Going back to the 90s, doesn't matter. Okay? So we call it server authentication. So server authentication means that Alice knows that she's talking to Concordia, basically. Okay? Why is that important?
Is that the same thing as non-repudiation?
No, non-repudiation is denying something that you did.
You can't deny.
But if you can prove that that person is authenticated themselves.
So you could say that the data is non-reputable. So
So
like once you send it, if you sign it, then you can prove to someone else that you sent that
This
data.
is not the same thing as a signature.
So there's a strong connection between non-repudiation and signatures.
But authentication is different than a signature.
Correct. Yeah. So it often uses signatures as part of it, but it's not one-to-one with the signature. Yeah. Okay. Why do I care that this is Concordia? Yeah.
Because when you try to go to a site, maybe you can get to a different site, but I want to make sure it's actually concordant.
Okay. So I have this tunnel. The tunnel ends somewhere. I want it to end at Concordia, right? If I don't know where the tunnel ends, how good is a tunnel? I could have a bulletproof tunnel. You cannot read anything that's sent over this tunnel, but the tunnel it ends before it leaves my laptop, or it ends at the Wi-Fi router, or it goes directly to the adversary and ends at the adversary, right? Is that a good tunnel? Does it matter if it's bulletproof and it has confidentiality and integrity? It doesn't, right? Okay, it's like you might as well not use a tunnel if you can't tell where the tunnel ends. Alice knows where the tunnel starts because she's putting the messages into it. Okay, so she can see her end of the tunnel, but she has no idea where the tunnel ends. So that's what we need. We need to know where the tunnel ends. Okay, so we call that server authentication. And the main thing it's going to prevent is an attack where the adversary tries to make the tunnel end with them, right? And so you're serving up your data directly to the adversary over a secure tunnel. And you think everything's good because you see it's a secure tunnel, right? But it's not a secure scenario because you're just giving your data on a silver platter to the adversary.
So there is no client authentication?
There's no client. So HTTPS supports client authentication in the protocol. Nobody in practice uses it, with maybe some weird exceptions of, I don't know, governments or
So
something.
it's not implemented?
It's not implemented yet.
Okay. So you said something happened in the 90s, like huge working.
So like in the early days of the web, people just didn't know how we would do user authentication. So they knew that like if you want to log into your bank, the bank has to figure out who you are. And so the browsers just standardize HTTPS with that capability. So they assume that you would use HTTPS and you would do mutual authentication. And it's a really good user experience. You would just type in rbc.com or whatever, you press enter, and you would immediately be shown your like your bank statements. You'd be logged in. Okay. But the way it works is you have to have a key, and the key has to be recognizable to Concordia. And the problem was handing out the keys to all the users. And how do you know that this key, and then if someone stole your key and things like that. So instead, we ended up in a situation where they just made you create a password and a login for it. And then they store the login instead. And then now we don't need keys and all that type of stuff. Yeah.
Maybe it's implemented in sensitive websites like
Yeah.
FBI or NSA or...
Yeah, so exactly. So it could be like internal corporate use of it. You have an environment where you can issue keys to everyone. That's the sort of requirement. Yeah.
Would PGP use queries?
So PGP is not for HTTP. So PGP is also a secure tunnel, but it's for email instead. So it's an encryption wrapper on the email protocol, not on the HTTP protocol. Yeah. Okay. Let's go on. Okay, so I want to make an attack tree. And of the three properties I want to focus on, I'm going to focus just on the first one. Okay, so an attack tree it's not just I want to attack HTTPS, it's like I have a specific goal. And so my goal is to observe traffic sent over HTTPS, assuming I'm in the middle. Okay, now if I want to attack integrity, like I want to modify traffic, I do another attack tree. Okay, so for HTTPS, you might have 10 attack trees, one for each property that it's supposed to achieve. Okay, so an attack tree it's more specific than a single solution. You're attacking one property of the solution itself. Okay, so my root node is going to be I want to observe any traffic that's sent over HTTPS, assuming that I'm in the middle. Okay, should I be allowed to do this? I shouldn't, right? That's the guarantee of HTTPS. Okay, but we're going to spend, like I say, 3 lectures showing you lots and lots of ways you can do this in effect.
On the previous TLS, right?
So a lot of the examples will be historical. So it'll be like this worked, it worked in 2000, it doesn't work today, kind of thing. Yeah, but I'll show you, different ways that you could have broken it in the past. Okay, so at a high level, I'm going to sort of split it into 3 sort of strategies, okay? The first strategy is I'm going to just sit outside of the tunnel, and it's true I can't break into the tunnel. I'm going to assume everything works flawless. The tunnel ends where it should be. I can't break into the tunnel, and I'm still going to sit there and say, can I literally do nothing? Like, is this tunnel so good that I don't know anything? Or maybe there's things that I could see even if I'm outside the tunnel, okay? So that will be the first class of attack that we look at. The second class, I'll give you some hints at how to break into the tunnel, but these are more cryptographic. So I don't want to turn this into a cryptography course. I'll show you some high level ideas, but we won't go as deep as we could in the second category. And then the third category where we'll spend the most time is, can I get the tunnel pointed at me? Can I make you think you're connected to Concordia, but you're really connected to me? And it turns out this is like probably the most fruitful way of attacking this protocol. There's lots and lots of ideas that people have about how you can get this tunnel pointed at you.
There's one way is to do an ERP spoofing.
So that gets you in the middle, but it doesn't get the tunnel ended at you.
And then you use another protocol on top of that for the HTTPS.
Okay, so we save that for later. We also have to talk about what does it even mean to have a tunnel end at you? Like, what does that mean? So we'll lock down what that means, and then we'll think about how to break
Well,
it.
because the traffic is going from Alice to Concordia,
Yep,
but first it goes through a router.
correct.
So if you actually are able to get on Alice's network,
Yep,
okay,
which I'm assuming that's
yeah,
the assumption.
That's it, you're on Alice's
BGP
network,
hijacking?
then you would get in between her and the router. Actually, you would change the MAC address of the router. This is what the ARP table in the ARP table of the operating.
Okay. All of this stuff gets.
I didn't do this criminally, but I studied it.
Yeah. No. All that gets you. It gets you where the adversary is here.
Yeah.
Okay. It doesn't let you break HTTPS.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but you're right. Like all those attacks get you in the middle. Yeah. Okay. But what we need to do is we have to actually break the tunnel. That's going to involve an extra step. Yeah. Okay. We'll get there though. Eventually, like not today. Okay. So let's start with the outside of the tunnel. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're just going to assume HTTPS works flawlessly. There's no problem with it. There's no problem with the protocol. We can authenticate both ends of the tunnel, or at least one end of it. And we just want to ask ourselves, if I'm in the middle, can I still learn stuff, even though I'm in the middle? What do you think, just as a first glance? Okay, what are things that you could learn?
Ciphertext?
Okay, so I see the ciphertext. So that means the encrypted, scrambled up version. So I do see that. Does that tell me anything? Maybe not.
But timing.
Okay, so I see timing of things, so that's observable.
I mean, you would see maybe who's sending it and where it's going.
Okay, so do I know who it came from and where it's going?
Yes.
Is that going to be on the outside of the tunnel or on the inside of the tunnel?
Both.
Okay, it could be both, but okay, let's assume it's on the inside. So we encrypt who it's going to. How does that packet get to where it's supposed to go? Like imagine you're sending a letter like by mail and you write the address on the card and then put it in the envelope and the envelope is blank and you drop it in the mailbox. Is that card going to get where it's going? No. Okay, so the address has to be on the outside of the envelope. The contents inside will stay private. Okay, this is no different. Okay, so when we route things on the internet, we don't route it to concordia.ca specifically. We route it to an IP address, which is like the telephone number of Concordia. Where do I get that, by the way? Where do I get the IP address for Concordia?
DNS server.
Okay, so DNS will give it to me. Do I have an encrypted channel to DNS?
Probably.
Probably, right? It would make a lot of sense.
I know Google's DNS 8.8.8.8 is probably.
Probably, yeah.
Concordio's gonna have their own DNS.
Sorry?
Concordia must have their own DNS.
Yep, so that's right. So who gives you your DNS?
The service provider.
Yeah, so the service provider. So right now I'm on Concordia, so Concordia is telling me where to go. But is it going to be encrypted between me and them?
Yeah.
Okay, so we think yes. Would it surprise you to learn no?
Depending on the ports.
So it does depend on all those things, but DNS themselves, they don't do encryption by default. Okay, why don't they do it? It's too slow.
Yeah.
And there's also a problem of like because I can go to Concordia's DNS or Google's DNS or Videotron's or whoever, I'm always on a completely different DNS. I walk down the street and I end up on 5 different DNS servers, right? I can't have keys for all of them. So that's mainly why we don't do encryption. Also, it adds I have to do a bunch of traffic just to make the encrypted channel. And all I want is an IP address. It's a really quick protocol. So DNS is not encrypted by default, okay? So let's say I want to go to Concordia, I need the IP address, I go to DNS. And if the adversary is between me and DNS, they know I'm going to Concordia, okay? What if I'm in the middle? I do know that they're going to Concordia because it has to be written on the outside of the envelope. Otherwise, that packet's not going to find its way to Concordia. And Alice's IP address will be also written on the outside of the packet. Yep.
Are there many levels of being in the middle? Are there different?
Absolutely, yeah. So let's pause for a second and say, what does it mean to be in the, like, where are you if you're in the middle? So it could be anywhere from inside of Alice's computer. So it could be malware. Then you would be in the middle. Sometimes you purposely set up software, like say antivirus, where it basically man in the middle is your connection so it can inspect things. It could be your corporate network. So maybe Concordia wants to monitor everything that's going on, so they don't let you set up secure encryption channels. In this case, Concordia would have to modify my computer. So they make a modification so that they could silently be in the middle and my computer wouldn't complain. But we'll talk about that later. It could be the Wi-Fi router. It could be your ISP. It could be any of the computer servers that the ISP own that someone else has access to.
But when the tunnel instantiates, all of the observation would be the same of the protocol, like in the middle, or there are different amount of information?
No, so like you're talking about like before the tunnel's in place?
No, after.
After it's in place, everyone sees the same thing. Yeah, yeah. So they see the encrypted data and they see just basically where it's going and where it's coming from, more or less. Yeah. It doesn't matter, yeah, if you're close or if you're in the middle. And then once it leaves your ISP, then it will go from, say, Concordia's ISP to, well, I'm going from Concordia to Concordia, but there will be a traversal in the middle. There's this whole BGP hijacking thing that you can do in the middle, and then the whole thing happens again on the other end. But yeah. Okay. Do you even care? Is there someone in the middle that might actually just care what domain you're visiting? Is the domain that you're visiting ever private information that you wouldn't want someone in the middle to know?
Yes.
Absolutely, right? There's lots of domains. There's lots of countries where just by the domain itself could get you in trouble with the government. And for privacy reasons, there's a lot of domains that you might want to go to that you don't want to everyone to know that you're going to in the middle, okay? So a domain name already, you can see it, okay? Now, technically, you say, well, you see the IP address, so that is true. So what's written on the outside of the envelope isn't concordia.ca, it will be the IP address, but DNS does reverse lookups too. So you can take the IP address, go back to DNS and say, give me the domain that's at this IP address, and then they'll tell you concordia.ca, okay? So HTTPS, right off the bat, everything works perfectly. It works flawlessly. It's still not giving you privacy over what domain that you go to, okay? And in certain situations, that might not be acceptable to you. Okay, let's do another example. Let's say I go to Wikipedia, and this is the way like a modern website like Wikipedia will work. So I type in wikipedia.org, I press enter, I go to DNS, it gives me the IP address. My DNS server gives me the IP address unencrypted of Wikipedia. Then I go to Wikipedia and we create this secure tunnel, okay? I don't know how, somehow, magic cryptography, we now have a secure tunnel, okay? Once that tunnel's in place, what I'll do is I'll say, hey, Wikipedia, the website that I want to visit on your website is /wiki/CF okay? And Wikipedia will say, great, I have that article for you. It's an HTML file, so my response is going to be index.html, and I'll send it back to Alice, okay? Then what Alice's browser will do is it will start reading this file from start to finish, and it will start displaying it in her browser. Okay, so like the title of the page, the logos, whatever, that type of stuff. But when it hits something like a logo, is the logo in index.html itself?
No.
Okay, so that picture won't be in the HTML. What will happen is it will have a link to where I can go and get that picture, and it will make a placeholder. It'll say, go here, grab the picture, and when you come back, now you have the picture, put it here and make it this big and all that type of stuff, okay? So then I have to go out to say upload.wikipedia.org. I say, okay, give me logo.png, and they say, okay, here's logo.png. And I keep going, and when I load a website, I'm going to load like 100 resources from 100 different places at the end of the day, okay? So it's not a one, like give me the website, it comes down and I'm done kind of thing. It's like I go there and it creates all this other traffic where I have to go and do other stuff too, okay? Now, I'm going to assume for now that this is secure as well. An interesting question you can put in the back of your head is, what if I go and I get the main page and it's secure, but some of these images are not secure tunnels? Okay, so now I have like a mix page where some of the page came down over a secure tunnel. Some of it didn't come down over a secure tunnel. Is the browser going to tell me overall this page is secure? Or is it going to say overall it's not secure? Yeah. Okay, so we'll talk about the permutations, but generally that's true. So as long as any content isn't coming over a secure tunnel now, the website will either block it, and if it blocks it, it just drops it, then it still is secure because it's just showing you the stuff that is secure, or it will show you it's not secure. And then it used to be the case that sometimes you get these like mixed content warnings, and then that's tied to that, but we'll get there eventually. Yeah.
When we put the logo.png into the server, we have to call the IP, which is start with HTTPS, to get the logo.png. So the whole website gonna run on HTTPS. So how we can, or maybe we have two different servers. One, we can get the logo.png through HTTP.
Okay, so there's a couple questions there. So let me just unpack it. First off, the same server can run both. So you can set up a server that runs HTTPS and it runs HTTP. Why doesn't that traffic get mixed together? So we have ports. So traffic goes over a port. You never think about the port because you never see it or ever have to think about it. But what port does HTTPS traffic go over? No. Yeah. Yeah, 443. Okay. If I wanted to send this over a specific port, can I just do it from my browser? Yeah, so I can just go :443, and you'll see it took me to the exact same website. Yeah. And I can even like type in the IP address here. I don't know if I don't have it at my fingertips, but I can type in the IP address and the :443 or whatever. Yeah. But okay, then what does HTTP go over? Goes over port 80. Okay. So that's why the same server can run both. Is HTTP will come over one port and HTTPS will come over the other. It won't get them mixed up. Yeah. Okay. Then the next question is, what are these servers different? And the answer is yes. So this is clean because Wikipedia is running both of these servers. That's not the case for most websites you go to. You go to tsn.com or .ca, it's going to load crap from everywhere, right? Like there's going to be stuff from TikTok and Google and ad libraries and all this stuff. And so you're going to weave all of that together into one mess, which we'll look at that exact example because it's a really like leaky website. And so that's all fine. And then how do you decide whether to do a secure tunnel to this or not? It's actually in the content of this website. So this website, this HTML file is telling you where to get the logo from. It has a link. And it decided whether to put HTTP : / or HTTPS. And your browser will just do whatever it's told. Yeah. So the decision of whether to have a secure tunnel here or here was actually made inside of this document, which was given to you by Wikipedia. So Wikipedia are deciding whether to send you to over a secure tunnel to get this stuff or not. So that's how you end up doing it. So the user isn't sitting back like saying, I want that secure or not. Like the user's not doing anything. It just all happens automatically. Yeah.
So subdomains won't get exposed outside the encrypted package, right? Or it's wrong?
So sorry, say again
The subdomains like wiki/cf.
Okay, good question. So is this inside the encrypted channel or not?
Yeah, that's the question.
Yeah. And what's the answer?
Yes.
So the IP address has to be on the outside. Does the exact file that you're looking for have to be on the outside to route it?
No, but
No.
I think no, because it's on the browser. That's the sense of the using the browser.
Yeah. So no, this will actually be inside the packet itself. So the tunnel will deliver it to Wikipedia. When it comes out the tunnel, it's like decrypting it. Then Wikipedia will be the only one that sees, you want to read the CF Montreal article as opposed to
And
another
the
article.
response could also be an error, right?
Yep,
Because
the response
if
can be
it
anything.
doesn't have that, if it can't find that file, or there's a network error on the other end, it's going to give like different error codes, right?
Correct, yeah. So you could get 404 or a redirect or something, yeah. Yeah.
Professor, the get request is inside the tunnel.
Yep, so the GET request itself is inside the tunnel. Yeah. So we'll talk about that again in a second. But yeah. Other questions though about this slide? Okay, let's take a 10-minute break, and then we'll dissect what happens under the hood of this. Let's say I want to see this happening for myself with my own eyes. How do I do it? So let's go to Wikipedia. I'll make it a little smaller so that you can see the top. Okay, so I'm on this website. How many resources just got loaded? Was it like 3, 100,
What do you mean by
1,000? So like images, anything that comes down with the website.
All the links, all the images,
Yeah? Okay. Can I
JavaScript.
see it somehow?
If you right click
Yeah.
and you go view source.
Okay, so if I view source, I will see the source code of the HTML. Then I could go through and pick it up.
Or
Yeah.
Or no,
Okay. So one thing that you should play with, if you're curious, is you might have to enable developer tools to do this, but every browser has essentially the same kind of interface, and it's called Web Inspector. And so it shows you a bunch of different things about the website itself. So I'm going to click on Network. I'm going to refresh the page. Okay. I'm going to actually try and do a hard refresh. Okay, remember the key combination for it. Not that. Okay. On Mac? It's not working. I think it's Alt Command R. I think that was the hard refresh. But okay. It was, you can see. But okay, this is all the stuff that came down with the website. So I'll try and sort it by time. Oh, I understand what's going on here. Okay, so the base page itself is this CF Montreal. So this is the HTML. And the HTML loads a bunch of other stuff and it loads a bunch of other stuff. One thing it might load is scripts, JavaScript. So I start running code, and that code can then load a whole bunch of other stuff too. Okay, so I won't necessarily see everything that's loaded just from this document itself. But you can see like hundreds of resources are loaded. As I mentioned, this is a pretty clean site because every resource is from Wikipedia itself. Okay, so Wikipedia is just loading resources from itself. That's not true of most websites that you go to. So here, this is TSN. So I know it's kind of small, but you can see like it's loading a bunch of stuff from websites like OpenNX, Google, Amazon Ad System, Bell stuff. Bell owns TSN, more Google. Anyways, you can go through it and you can see lots and lots of things, okay? Now, all of this stuff that loaded was literally, it just loaded just to show this page, okay? So that's just for this page that I'm looking at here. It loaded all of this stuff, all right? Okay, now let's go back to this secure tunnel thing, okay? So I have files here. So let's take the first resource. The file that I loaded is called CF_Montreal. Do you think that that would be in the tunnel or outside of the tunnel?
In the tunnel.
Okay, it's going to be in the tunnel. There's no reason that anyone in the middle needs to know what website I'm looking at. That's the name of this article. So it's /CF Montreal. So that's what it is. The tunnel will get me to wikipedia.org, okay, n.wikipedia.org. So I need the IP address on the outside of the tunnel to get it there. But once it's there, they can open up the tunnel and they can see what's inside, okay? So the actual fact that if there's someone in the middle that's listening right now, do they know I'm on Wikipedia? They do. Do they know I'm reading the CF Montreal article on Wikipedia?
No.
They do not. Okay, so they know the domain I'm going to, they just don't know what actual website I'm looking at. Okay. If I go and load resources from other websites, like here I'm loading it from TSN and quarterly.com, do they know I'm loading something? They might not know what it is, but do they know I'm going to this domain to get something?
No.
They do. Okay, because I made a connection. I made a request to get that file. I had to put the IP address of that on the outside of the packet. It's going to go and it's going to come back.
That's not encrypted.
So that cannot be encrypted. Otherwise, it won't find its way to the right spot. Okay, that makes sense? Okay.
The domains are unencrypted.
Exactly. So all the files themselves, the fact that it's an image, all that stuff is encrypted. The domains themselves are not encrypted. There'll be an IP address form, but you can convert them back to domain form. Okay. Here I have the type of file it is. So this is an HTML document. This is CSS. CSS is like all the fonts and the layouts of websites. JS is JavaScript, so that's some script that's running. SVG is a kind of image. PNG is also a kind of image. Does the person in the middle know if this is over a secure tunnel? Do they know whether what I'm loading is an image as opposed to a document as opposed to JavaScript? Okay. We think no? Yeah. Would it be inside or outside? Okay. Does it have to be on the outside? So not this, like by the site you mean this? Oh, sorry, size. We'll get there. Yeah.
The browser needs to know that.
The browser needs to know it, but does the person in the middle to route that packet need to know what it is?
It could help.
Maybe it could help, but they don't need to know it. Yeah. So they just need to know the IP address itself. So it's going to be inside the tunnel. So we're not going to say what the image is itself. Okay. There's the protocol it runs over. This will be on the outside of the tunnel. So this is HTTP 2. We won't worry about that. The initiator, we'll just kind of skip that. Okay, let's go to size. What about, can you tell the size or not?
Yes. I mean, you'll see basically how many packets are being transferred, right?
Okay, but it's encrypted, right?
I mean, you could still probably get some idea of the size of the things you're transmitting.
Okay, why do you think that? I'm not saying you're right or wrong, but just why?
I mean, if you're transferring packets over, right, that would be the size of a file. So if you're going back to like an envelope that you're passing through, if you have like a big box, you can assume that it's something bigger.
Okay. So if I have a big data and I encrypt it, the encrypted version of it should be big as well, right?
Well,
If I have small data, relatively. But can someone give me a precise answer? I know you don't necessarily know crypto, but what the question boils down to, the message I'm encrypted, or the data, is the size of the unencrypted data and the size of the encrypted data the same?
They're not the same, they're related.
Depends on the medium you're using for the encryption.
Okay, so give me an example of an encryption and what?
Okay, so if you're using like
Oh, yeah, they can be, I mean, block ciphers, I mean, that can be the same.
Okay,
if you're using block, you have to chop it. If you're using string, bit by bit.
yeah,
And I think the time it takes for that particular packet to transfer is going to dictate the size of it. Because if you are looking at it and you're saying, okay, this takes like a millisecond, that means it's not big. But like, let's say you're downloading a file,
yeah.
you will know it's a big file. Like,
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So the answer is yes. You do know. So if I have a message and I encrypt it, the encrypted form is exactly the same size, or at worst, it's rounded up to the nearest 256 bits if it's a block cipher. It doesn't quite fill the whole block, but that's like very, very tiny. We're talking about bits, but how big are these things in practice? They're kilobytes, thousands of bytes. Okay. And so those little rounding errors don't mean anything. Okay. So if I send this file and it's 96.66 kilobytes and I encrypt it, the encrypted version of it is also going to be 96.66 kilobytes. Okay. So it does not preserve the length. It doesn't mask the length of things. Could it?
Yeah, if you add padding or something.
Okay, so you can never make it smaller. That would be magic. If I could have a big message and encrypt it and somehow it's smaller,
Compress it.
and then someone could Yeah, so there is compression, but anyways, without compression, or I'm going to assume it's already compressed, like a PNG is already a compressed image. So I can't compress it any further. Encryption isn't magic. It's not compression, so it can never get smaller. It could get bigger. I could encrypt padding or garbage at the end. I can make all my packets the same size. So let's say I rounded all these packets up to 100 kilobytes. Then you wouldn't know what's what anymore. But what's the downside?
Transfer just takes longer, right?
Exactly.
If you have something that's, for example, 3 kilobytes, now it's like
Yeah, now it's 100 times bigger, right? And so it's going to be a huge performance hit. Like no one wants to do that. Yeah. So we could do it in principle, but we don't. We prioritize efficiency over privacy for this case, and we don't round. Yeah. Okay. And then here, this is just the time it took me to receive the packet. So after I received, after I hit the send button on my browser, how long did it take me to receive that first file? So it took 77 milliseconds. And then I started loading these other resources, and you can see visually here too, like sort of when they came in. And so the start of the line is when I ask, sometimes it takes more than one packet. So that's why there's a width here. This is when I started receiving, and this is when I received the last packet that I needed.
What does the blue mean?
I forget. No idea. Yeah. It means something, I'm sure.
What if you hover over?
What if you have, yeah. So green is transferred and blue is received?
That is the byte of the packet, blue is the received, green the sent.
Okay. So that could be very well. So the start of the green is when I send the request for it. And then when I hit blue, I start receiving it. And then the end of the blue is when I'm done receiving it. I buy that. Okay. Let's just catalog what we just said. So I have all these different things. So the fact that it's this exact file with this exact name, that's in the tunnel. The fact that I'm going over a secure tunnel, the adversary can see. So they can see that I'm going over a secure tunnel. They can't see, it's sort of part of the same thing, but because they can't see the actual file, they don't know anything about it. They don't know the file name. They don't know the extension. They don't know that it's an image as opposed to anything else. They don't know anything about the actual packet itself. They do know the domain that's being visited. And they also, not directly, it's not because the protocol is telling them, but they can infer what the size is because they know that encryption doesn't change sizes. Okay, so that's something you can infer. Okay. Now, if you know all of this and you're in the middle, Could you tell I'm reading CF Montreal's Wikipedia page as opposed to any other page on Wikipedia?
Actually, no.
So I don't know because I can't read this.
We'd only see that it was on Wikipedia and that it's on the page.
Okay, so I only see that it's on Wikipedia. I know it's some page on Wikipedia. I can't see that it's exactly CF Montreal because that's in the tunnel. Okay.
But we can see the name of these.
But we can see this. We can see this stuff and this stuff. Does that tell you anything?
Yeah, it's enough.
To know that you went on that site?
Does it tell you anything about which article I'm reading if you can see this other stuff? The stuff that you can see.
No.
And why do you think not?
Maybe with the size. Maybe.
Okay, so what?
If it's a larger size, then you could defer that it's an image.
You need it to like.
It's rather than just a file.
Okay, so I can start making inferences about the sizes of things. Yeah.
But even then, like, there are still different sizes, even for the same things, right?
Correct. Yeah. So you be limited. So like a JavaScript, yeah, like an image could be big and something else could be small and things like that. Yeah. Anything else I can do? I like this idea of inference. Like maybe I'm not 100% sure, but can I sort of infer things?
I think if you see that it's uploaded to Wikimedia, you could assume that it's an image or something.
Yep, sure, for sure.
You can visit different sites and make a database, and then it will be easy to match.
Okay, so your idea is I'm going to go to all the Wikipedia pages,
Like
and eventually I'll hit CF Montreal. And what am I going to write down when I go to CF Montreal? I'm the adversary, so I go to CF Montreal. What do I write down?
whatever information that is outside the encryption,
Which is
the sizes.
yep. So
Also, yeah.
okay, so I'm going to write down I'm going to go to CF Montreal first, and I'm going to say when I go to this article, I load 649 different resources. Is there any other article on Wikipedia that has exactly 649, not 648, not 64010, has exactly 649 resources? Maybe, but is there going to be a lot of them?
You can narrow it down.
I can narrow it down from like the 10 million articles on Wikipedia to the 30 that have that. Okay.
Also, you can see the URL itself, URL of the files, right?
Yep. So I can see where they're coming from as well.
That's
So I can add that into it. But then what about the sizes? So even if I find another website that has exactly the same number of resources, are they going to have something that is 86 followed by 17 followed by 20 followed by 3? Or are the sizes on that one going to be a little different? Or maybe they come down in a different order. They're going to be different, right?
But like for Wikipedia at least, with how it can be frequently or unfrequently updated, that would
Correct. Yeah. So I do have to keep my database up to date, kind of thing. Yeah. But what I could do is I could try to fingerprint, as we call it. I could try and fingerprint what it looks like from outside of the tunnel. And then when I see users going to Wikipedia, I can compare what I'm seeing there with the fingerprint. And it can be fuzzy. So like maybe this image doesn't load because I've already loaded it. So it's in my browser already, it's cached. So my browser doesn't go and ask for it from the server. It just says, I already have that image. I'll just put it into the website directly. So everyone's like traffic will be slightly different, okay? It's not going to match this fingerprint exactly, but there's a rich amount of data here that you can base your fingerprint on, okay? And you can probably, you throw your best machine learning algorithm classifier at it, and you can probably figure out what site people are going to, okay? So researchers did exactly that. And so they went to a bunch of different websites, Mayo Clinic, Planned Parenthood, banking websites, legal services, and all of that type of stuff. And this is like an older paper, but they were able to identify what website people were going to with 90% accuracy just by looking outside the tunnel. So they didn't break in the tunnel. They don't know for sure. They're just looking at the pattern of like, here's the data that goes back and forth and how big it is and how many resources. And what does that look like in our database of all the things that we built fingerprints for? Okay. Does that look bad to you?
Yeah.
It should, right? Like HTTPS is saying like anyone in the middle doesn't know what you're doing. It doesn't look that way, does it?
Exactly.
Yeah. And this, I didn't even break anything. Literally, I didn't break anything yet. I just sat outside the tunnel. I wrote down everything I saw. That's all I did. And the protocol lets me, it lets me see all of this stuff, right? Everything I'm doing is like completely above board. And I can track, I can track you across with 90% accuracy any of these
As
websites.
A criminal, why would you even want to notice someone went on a website like that?
So you're thinking the person in the middle is a criminal, so that's one aspect, but it's not always that. It could be a government that's spying on people. It could be a corporation that's keeping tabs. There's lots of different things. Yeah. Okay. Now there's one sort of silver lining that makes this somewhat acceptable. So this is true. Like this is bad. Okay. And HTTPS doesn't fix it. Okay. That's the end of the story. Could I do this attack to read your email? Could I just sit outside the tunnel and figure out what your email is?
No.
We think not. Why?
Different, like say, it's coming from different places.
It's
Basically, that's one.
Okay. Not quite.
Then different
It's these
sizes.
different protocol.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't clear. Yeah, email's a bad example. I was envisioning I log into gmail.com and check my email. So it's coming over the web. But you can make it whatever. I go into my private messages on Twitter or on X. Can you read my private messages on X from outside the tunnel?
No.
Why? How's that different? You can tell that I'm on CF Montreal's website.
When you say read, it's much stronger.
Okay.
It's to know exactly what you mean actually know what you're typing?
Yeah, or whatever. I'm just trying to get the scope of what I can do and can't do.
It is encrypted. The conversation between a group is encrypted.
Yeah, but this is encrypted too. When I went to
Yeah, but
Wikipedia,
this
it was
is just
encrypted.
comparing with what's already on there to know like.
Okay, so that's the key. So to do this attack, I compared it to something. What am I comparing? I'm comparing when I went to Wikipedia, I get a fingerprint of it. I see you go somewhere, and I compare your fingerprint to the fingerprint I already have. Can I fingerprint your Twitter DMs? I can't, because I can't log into it,
Yeah.
right? Okay, so this fingerprinting attack only works on the public web. So it works on any website the adversary could go to before or after you and fingerprint exactly what it looks like. Then they can compare it to you. But if it's a website that only you can see because it's behind a login, then this fingerprinting attack isn't going to work. Okay? So all the like private web stuff is still safe from this attack. Okay? So fingerprint only works on public websites because you have to train the algorithm on what those public websites look like, or you have to fingerprint it first. Okay? But still, this is a pretty devastating attack just for like scratching the surface of what we can do. Okay, next question. I floated this earlier. What happens if some of these things are loaded over HTTPS and some of them aren't? What's the browser going to do? Okay, so we call that mixed content. And what we do is, first off, sometimes we care about what the content is. Okay? So in general, you have content that we call passive or active. Passive content is just displayed to the user. So an image is passive content, it's displayed. A video is just displayed. Active content is code. So once it starts running, it can do anything arbitrary. And once code gets running, it can rewrite the website, it can change things around, it can do a lot of damage to it, okay? So we call that active content. And generally, we will not accept active content over HTTP, okay? Like if you try and download JavaScript now over HTTP, your browser will just block it and throw it away and say, I'm not even gonna run that, okay? if you try and do passive content, we're kind of in a stage of flux. So the browsers evolve even year to year. So what I said last year is maybe different than this year. Now they try to load it over HTTPS. If they can, then they're happy. And if they can't, I think they might display it, but they might say not secure. I'm not sure. We can actually experiment with it because there's a nice website that has it. This is sort of the old UI, but I'll just show it to you because you may have seen it in the past. So sometimes you see a lock. That's fine. Everything's good. But sometimes you'd see weird locks. Like there was a lock with a slash through it, or there was a lock with like a little warning sign. Usually these pertain to this scenario where there's mixed content. Some content is coming over a secure tunnel and some content isn't coming over a secure tunnel. And the other thing your browser will do is now it will block. It'll be more active. It won't just like mix the content. It used to warn you. So you would go to like even YouTube. You just go to YouTube and you would always get these mixed content warnings and you have to click through them. No one really knew what they meant. Now browsers changed and now they just block content.
Antiviruses, are they more effective than just the browser alone for this type of stuff?
Not necessarily. Yeah. They're actually kind of worse because they break HTTPS in the middle, and so you don't always know whether it came over HTTPS or not because you have a secure tunnel to the antivirus and you can't see the tunnel between the antivirus and the website. Yeah. Okay, so this is an example where I went to a URL. You can see it. This is Safari when I made the slide, so I don't think it will work the same way. We'll try it in a second. But it said that it did allow the website to display this image. So image.jpg, it allowed it to be displayed. It's just warning me that there's a form. A form is like how to take data off the user. But if I try and submit stuff over that form, I'm going to get other warnings that I have to click through that we'll see. And then here I tried to download JavaScript and it blocked it. So my browser said, forget it. I'm not even going to accept it. Okay. So you can play around with this. So there's the website's called badssl.com. It has a million different kinds of errors, and you can see how your browser responds to the errors. So you can play. There's a million things here. There's lots of stuff you can try. We'll try mixed script here. And so you can see that at the very bottom, there's a warning, and it basically says, I blocked this script. And because it blocked this script, the other three things that were on this website were over HTTPS. So it blocked the one thing that wasn't. Everything else is over HTTPS, so it's still showing me, it's not saying not secure at the top, because it's now an HTTPS website because it just blocked the script. Is that okay for browsers to just go around blocking JavaScript?
No.
No, not necessarily. It could break websites, right? But it's better than running it from a security perspective. So this change isn't something that browsers just woke up one day and turned on. It was something that was rolled out over years. And browsers told websites, in 2023 or 2022 or whatever, we're turning this on. You have a year to fix your website. And if your website isn't fixed, it's going to break. Yeah. And so sometimes you have to do that. If you want to change things, you have to break backwards compatibility. Here's another example of mixed content.
It ran it, right?
Yep, so it ran it. It's not displaying the not secure. And it's giving me two warnings. So the first thing is it's saying I blocked this JavaScript. Then it's saying, oh, there was this image and I tried to grab it over HTTP. It wanted me to grab it over HTTP. Before I decided whether I was going to block it or not, I just said, let me try to grab it over HTTPS anyways. Maybe it will work. And so this website was actually probably configured before Safari made this change where they would automatically do it. And so it actually was able to grab this image over HTTPS. And so it was loaded over HTTPS. But if the website was configured in such a way that it wouldn't serve it over HTTPS, then the browser would be forced to decide whether to display it or not. And I believe now that the browser will decide to display it. So it will give you a warning, but you'll never see the warning if you're not in this developer mode. So you'll just go to the website. Now, how much damage can it do if there's just a bad image on a website?
It could.
Yeah, you can.
Not gonna display.
Yeah, so you can concoct scenarios where maybe like the adversary can sneak in a different image than what should be displayed, and that might be really meaningful. But I'd say probably for 99% of the web, it doesn't really matter. It's just an image, kind of, and it's probably not that
Bad
meaningful.
image, you mean one that won't load? Like,
No, I just mean a different, like the adversary, because let's assume this came over HTTP. If I'm in the middle, I can change that. So when you look at the website, I can put whatever I want there
It'd
instead.
be bad if you put like a graphic nudity.
Oh, sure. So I could try to like shock the user or something like that. But generally, adversaries, sometimes they do that, but more it's usually money motivation or like espionage or something like that. Yeah. It's hard to think how I'm going to make money by like overwriting images, but I could put an ad up or something like that and hope people click on it. I don't know. But anyways, browsers decided that image is not so bad. JavaScript's a completely different scenario. If you get bad JavaScript running, it can rewrite the website itself. So it can just make it display something completely different. Okay, another thing that we can do if we're outside of the tunnel is we can say, hey, we can't break the tunnel today. Does that mean in 20 years when we have quantum computers that we won't be able to break it? What about the encryption algorithms that we use today? Can you guarantee me that in 20 years someone won't find a way to mathematically break those?
No.
Not necessarily, right? I don't know. Like probably.
They probably
Maybe
will
they
be,
will
but-
be upgraded.
Maybe, but what if I store your traffic today?
Yeah, we can.
So you send that email today, the algorithms change in 20 years,
Yeah.
but I have your encrypted data under today's algorithms. Yeah?
They'd have to update everything.
Yeah, you can update everything, but it's too late. Like I have it under today's algorithm, right? All the traffic that we're creating right now, we're using today's algorithms. Anyone can see the ciphertext. They might not be able to break it, but they can just store it. If they can store it for 20 years, then they get to attack it with the computers of the future. Yeah?
So can we see the algorithms before 30 years, for example?
So we can see what algorithms are used, yeah, and we can also roll back the clock and say, hey, what if someone did this 30 years ago, and look at the algorithms that were used 30 years ago, and you will actually find that some of them are not great. Yeah, they have weaknesses. Not usually a complete break, but there are weaknesses in 30-year-old. Maybe you might have to go a little longer than 30 years, but yeah. Okay, so let's say you're a government and you have not infinite money, but you have near infinite money, right? Is traffic that's sent today even something you care about in 20 years? Like who said what? Like there's some secure emails going around or whatever. Do you even care in 20 years what was said?
No.
Okay.
I think it
Maybe
depends on,
yes.
Criminal case.
Okay, so it could be a criminal case. So do people ever get charged for crimes that they committed 50 years ago?
Yes.
Yeah, all the time?
All the time.
Yeah, okay. What about espionage? Do we ever care about like what, I don't know, China and Russia were talking about 20 years ago, 30 years ago?
Could be a plan for the future.
Yeah, could it have some consequence for today?
Yes.
It could, yeah.
And it
Uh,
can happen sooner, like not many years, 5 years.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
To
Yeah,
build
so
a
we don't know how long it's going to take to break it, too, yeah. Okay, so what are governments probably doing?
Storing the data.
Right, they're probably building places like this in Utah, right? We don't know what this is. It's a government facility, but you can see it from Google Satellite Street View or whatever. And you can see people who know this stuff, I don't. They can look at the architecture of this and say, man, that looks like a big data server and another data server, and there's power buildings and cooling plants and all that type of stuff. I wonder what they're doing there, right? Probably they're storing all the encrypted traffic that they can get their hands on over any protocol, and they're just going to keep it and wait and see, right? Maybe in 20 years, maybe in 30 years, they'll be able to break it, and then, yeah, and then that's it.
Hmm. That's interesting.
Now there is this property called perfect for its secrecy, which some crypto algorithms have and some crypto algorithms don't have. And this makes this kind of attack better, but it doesn't completely solve it. So it depends on how you're going to attack the algorithm, whether you're able to break. Future breaks can kind of rewind time and break older messages. So you'll take a crypto course or you'll take protocols with me, and then you'll learn about what this is. And there's some caveats with it. So it doesn't protect you perfectly. It protects certain parts of your communication, but not all of your communication. And it is in TLS now. So TLS 1.3 only has this property. You can't not have this property without going back to an old version of TLS. But anyways, I'm not going to question you on this here. I'm just throwing it in for interest. Okay, so let's say we want to put this into an attack tree. So I have this idea that I'm going to try and get data just sitting outside of the tunnel. I'm not going to go inside the tunnel. First off, right away, I can learn everything that is on the outside of the tunnel. What's on the outside of the tunnel? Well, there's everything that's sort of in the headers, which includes the domain. There's the DNS query where I ask for the IP address of the server. If I'm in the middle there, that's not encrypted. And then any content that gets mixed in that is not over HTTPS, I can also just read and modify if I want to modify it. This is, I guess, kind of saying the same thing. So this is like just reading the content, but I can also modify it as well. So let's say that we go back in time to when browsers would allow you to mix in content that wasn't insecure. If I'm in the middle and I see a JavaScript file going down, it could be like an ad library, something benign, doesn't matter. But if I see it going down and it's not over HTTPS, A, I can read it. That's not so useful. But B, I can change it. Okay, so I'm going to change it. Then that's going to go down to the browser. The browser is going to start running it. And once it starts running, I'm just going to say, grab everything else that's on the website right now that's being shown to the user, package it up, and send it to this server, my server. And now I can see everything else. Oh, by the way, put a password field there. And if they ever type something in, I want character by character what they're typing in that field, phone it home. And I'll be able to basically strip off all the security of that website itself. Okay, so this is why it's blocked. It's so dangerous to let that go through. There's the fingerprinting attack. So I can look at sizes of things, numbers of resources, and I can be pretty effective at seeing what you're visiting, at least on a public website, by matching it. And then there's the idea that I could just store it and break it later. That's more of like a nation state attack, not really like a hacker kind of attack, but yeah. Okay, questions about this sort of branch of the tree?
It's the same concept as the thing you did with the
Correct, yeah. So it's like the parking lot example. It's just a technical. Yeah.
You showed two examples. One was the Wikipedia, the other one was PSN, and one was the Wikipedia when the URLs inside was the same, were the same. So which one is more, I mean, on daily use, how many of the websites are like that? How much information are being used?
Yeah. So remember, I think you said it earlier too, was you also, the other thing that's on the outside of the tunnel is all of these websites, like where you're going to, and you can fingerprint that as well. So I'm like, I already know you're going to TSN anyways, but I can see all the weird URLs that you're also building. So it depends on, I'd say most websites look a lot more like TSN, yeah? Because they're weaving ad libraries and there's content and there's like, I'm using this library to build the website and things like that. Wikipedia is very like philosophical about internet freedom and things like that. So they build their website in a specific way, but that is not the case. Even websites that you wouldn't think need to do all of this stuff. Like TSN, it's fine. It's like you're paying money. There's ads. They're going to show you ads. They're going to try and generate revenue. But let's say Concordia, right? What do you think of Concordia? Do you think it would be like a clean website? Or do you think it would be mixing in a bunch of weird stuff?
Mixing.
Okay, let's just see for ourselves. Okay, So you can see it looks pretty good so far. So I have Concordia. Let me do a hard refresh. I have a CDN, so that's like content mixed in. But then I get down here, and now I'm starting to see things like Facebook, Classic Cloud, Lichen, Google, TA Manager, Facebook again, analytics.tiktok.com, Hotjar, Clarify. Anyways, you can keep going. So it's not probably as messy as CSN, but still, it's a university website. It's a public company, a public institute. And so all of these companies can basically track you. This is what you'll learn in assignment 2, and we're going to talk about it in a couple weeks. But basically, TikTok, if you've ever gone to TikTok before, say you're logged in, right? They know that you went to Concordia. Because when I went to Concordia, it sent one message to TikTok, right? And it's going to have what's called a cookie that's baked into it. And so they'll know, at this time on this date, that user went to Concordia. And then when you're on TikTok, all of a sudden you see Concordia ads, right? In your stream. That's how they know it, right? Yeah.
There are options to block third-party cookies on your browser.
Yeah. So there's different things you can do to lock it down. So you can do things in the browser settings. You can do things now by law. So anyone that complies with Canadian law, they have you see it on all websites now where it's accept all cookies and all that kind of stuff. So you can play around with that type of thing. Or you could use a browser extension like Ghostery, right? And that's actually exactly what it does. Okay, that's the goal of it, is to first off show you, because I had to open up developer tools to see all of this. What about everyday users? So if you install Ghostery, it's going to give you a picture that shows you everyone that's tracking, and then it'll give you some controls over, I don't want TikTok tracking me. I don't care about the other stuff or whatever. Yeah. Okay, other questions about looking from outside the tunnel? Okay. Now let's try to break into the tunnel. We'll start here, but we won't get very far.
The SSL.
That will come even later. But yeah. Okay. So what does it mean to break into the tunnel? Well, we know there's some crypto magic happening that makes the tunnel. So what I can do is I can either break the crypto itself. Not really going to consider that in this course. We'll look at it in other courses. Or the other thing you need to know about cryptography is all cryptography is premised on the fact that the sender and the receiver share a secret called a key. How they get the key, that's a big conversation that we'll have eventually. But for now, we just assume Alice is talking to Concordia. Alice knows some secret value called a key. Concordia knows the same secret value called a key. The person in the middle somehow doesn't know the key. Okay? So even though they made that secure tunnel and they were in the middle the whole time and they listened to the whole conversation, they end up not knowing what that key is. All right? So they're in the middle without the key, and that's what's stopping them from breaking into the tunnel. So they're either going to break into the tunnel without the key, which would be a cryptographic attack, or they could try and get the key. Okay? So if I can get the key, then I can break into the tunnel. Or I can try and break in without the key. Okay, so we'll either steal the key or we'll break it without the key. Okay. So that's what I mean sort of by break in without the key. So it's sort of you're bypassing, think of it as a bypass without the key. Yeah. But what do you think is easier?
I think bypass is easier.
Okay, bypassing it, what stops you from bypassing it? So it's sort of the cleverness of the people who designed the protocol. Yeah? And these people have been working, they also improve the protocol every now and then. So here you're kind of up against 30 or 50 years of cryptographers trying to think about things. It is possible, so I'm going to show you lots of clever ways. I won't show you a lot, but I'll at least name check a bunch of them. So you can do it, it happens frequently. But I would argue that this is actually easier. Yeah, I just have to steal the key. If I can get it off of you or the server, I don't have to attack Concordia. I can attack you.
And these are
Right.
the ways that we learn in 61110?
This stuff more, yeah.
Like
And
how to
you mean 10 or 20?
6110,
6120
the,
is the protocol address.
Yeah, so 6110 you'll learn the cryptography that underlies it, like what all the primitives are, but
okay.
yeah.
But
And
we-
20 you'll learn more like
we-
the
We
protocols.
learned some ways to crack the keys in 611.
Okay, that's perhaps, yeah. Okay, so there's one class of attack that works across domains. So we can apply it to HTTPS. I'm not going to go through the details of exactly how it works, but I do want to give you some examples also of other places where it can work. It's one of these general techniques that you see. HTTPS is cryptography. It's math, okay? If I want to tell you what the HTTPS protocol is, how do I do that? Well, I write down a bunch of math and I hand you the piece of paper, okay? Then you're going to take that piece of paper, you're going to code all the math into a computer, and now you're going to be running it, okay? And so there's two things. There's the math that underlies it, and then if you turn the math into what you program into your computer, we call that a specification. So a specification is just like do this, then do this, then do this kind of thing. So you can have one of those two things, okay? Is every attack going to go through the specification? Is it always going to be a flaw either in the math or in the specification? Or are there things that are maybe once you turn the specification into code, it gets introduced at that stage? Okay, so you didn't think of it at specification time because you weren't really thinking about the fact that this would be turned into code. But now that it's turned into code, all of a sudden there's vulnerabilities. Okay, so one category is timing. Okay, so let's say that I receive a message from you, and I'm going to decrypt it, I'm going to read it, and then I'm going to respond to you. All right. Now this is completely facetious. It doesn't work. It's not this easy. But just say that my key, I have a cryptographic key and it has a lot of zeros. And every time I hit a zero, I get to skip steps because it's just zero anyways. And you have a cryptographic key and it has a bunch of ones in it. Okay? Is it conceivable that like I could decrypt things faster than you could with my key just because I have a weird key that has a lot of zeros? Okay? And if that were the case, could you measure the difference? And then now you can say, okay, that's someone that looks like they have a key with a lot of zeros, and that's someone that looks like they have a key with a lot of ones. Okay? That's the kind of thing that's not covered by the spec, right? The spec doesn't tell you how long it takes to do things. And so we call it side channel analysis because we're going around the side. Okay? So timing is a big one. It's not that simple, but there are timing attacks on HTTPS where you can measure how long things take. You can infer what's happening under encryption based on how long it's taking, and then you can use that to slowly break the encryption.
What's specification again?
So specification is it's a written document, so it's in English, but it just tells you how to program the protocol. It's not code, it's kind of like one level above code. So it will say like,
It's the math?
it's below math. Do you say math or?
Yeah, math.
It's below math and above code. So it would say like, for example, there's a data, like the first thing you send is this message. It's this many bytes long, and then you pad it with this many bytes, and this is how you do the padding and blah, 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 that kind of stuff. Yeah? So like there'll be specifications. You can look at the specification itself. I can show you an example, but. So it's like a document, it kind of looks like this. So this is for TLS, and it just sort of tells you, okay, send this packet and things like that. So a programmer will take this, and this is what they're going to use to try and program a client that speaks the language of TLS in this case. Okay. So what are some other examples of side channel that not necessarily to do with HTTPS, just to do with things in general? So other kinds of side channel could be the power consumption. So it used to be the case that ATMs, everything is hardened now because we know about all these things, but you could go to a bank, and if you could access where the ATM is plugged into the wall, you could put a very sensitive voltage meter between, so you plug the ATM into your meter, you plug the meter into the wall. So now all the current that it's drawing is flowing through your meter. And then when people press keys, you press the number 1 key because you're putting your PIN in. It creates some, weird noise, but that noise looks slightly different than if you press the 2 key, right? Because the resistance is slightly different. And if your thing is sensitive enough, you can measure the difference. So what will happen is someone will be typing their PIN in. You can't see them, but you can see the pattern of the electricity that it's generating, and you can read out their PIN because the press of an 8 looks different than the press of a 1. Okay. Similar thing with electromagnetic interference. So devices are giving off radio signals all the time. You can hear it with a radio. You can't hear it with your ears, but if you have a radio, you can hear it. And machines, the signals that they send depend on what people are doing with them. So there was a voting machine. This was, I think, in the Netherlands. And it's like an ATM. So you go, you vote. It's electronic. So if you want to vote for Alice, you press one button. If you want to vote for Bob, you press another button. And people were standing outside of the building with a radio, and they could hear in the static of the radio every time someone pressed the button A or button B, because they sounded different. And you didn't get that signal until someone pressed the button. So you could just sit out there and you could read how many votes anyone is getting.
Doing a key logger, when you have that installed, that's not encrypted. Whatever's going back to the.
Correct. Yeah.
It's not, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So anything over a keyboard is generally not encrypted. Yeah. And then monitor cords is a complicated thing. So now with HDMI, it is encrypted because they're scared of piracy. People taking the things off the signals. But anyways, sound is another thing. So now laptops are pretty quiet, but we used to have computers that were loud. They would sit on your desk and they'd be making all these weird clicking noises and things like that. So I went to a talk. It was actually this algorithm RSA is 3 people, and so the S in RSA, Adi Shamir, was giving the talk, and he was sitting at his computer one day and he was listening to the clicking it makes, and he's like, I have no idea why it's making those sounds, but I wonder if I could read a decryption key out by just recording that sound. So he would record it very sensitively, and then he would decrypt with RSA, and then he would try a different key and he would get a different sound. And of course you have to go very sensitive and look at the millisecond level. But he was able to figure out how to read a key, a decryption operation out, and just by the sound of it, he could turn it back into the key.
What sound is it listening?
So it's it's hard, I can't even describe it, but it's just when you would, especially when you ask your computer to do something hard, say encode a video or something, it would just start clicking and clacking really loud. And I don't even know what causes it, but anyways, any kind of hard computation, including encryption, it would just make a lot of noise.
On
Yeah.
the wire?
Sorry?
On the wire?
No. I mean noise that you hear with your ear. Yeah. You can actually hear it. Yeah. Everyone's spoiled now. You don't remember what it was like to have loud computers. Not everyone,
You're
but some.
talking about when they had modems back in the days?
Yeah, so modems
Di-
make those
dial-up
kinds of noises, but
dial-up modems used to make those.
yeah. But this is just a computer itself. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that actually. Yeah, I do remember.
Okay, another thing is your phone has a very sensitive gyroscope. What's a gyroscope?
It's to know where you put how you're positioned.
Okay, so gyroscope is the thing that knows how I'm orienting my phone relative to the ground. It uses gravity, right, to figure it out. Why do I have a gyroscope?
It's really flipping your screen over.
Okay, so I want to do FaceTime like this. Now I want to do FaceTime like this. My phone somehow figures out that I need to orient the screen different. How does it do it? With a gyroscope. Okay. And then there's more crazy applications like augmented reality where I'm kind of holding it up and moving it and it's looking at the image and it's transposing things. Or on Google Street View, I'm like, what's that restaurant? And I point it at it and it uses the compass and the gyroscope and things like that. Okay. So that's fine. Now the gyroscope is very sensitive. Okay, probably more sensitive than it needs to be. And so like even slight turns, it knows exactly how it's oriented. Yeah? All right. Now here's what happens. Let's say I'm logging into a website. I'm typing my password on the keyboard. As I'm pressing the keys, not the key, like just pressing on this on the screen itself, I'm tilting my phone ever so slightly, right? Just the thumbs and the motion of it, I'm vibrating the phone. And if I want to type a key that's near the outside of my phone, I'm probably going to vibrate it a lot. And if I'm typing it near the middle of the phone, it's not going to vibrate as much. And if it's at the bottom, it might vibrate in the X, like the Y direction. And if it's in the middle, it might not vibrate a lot. Okay. If I could measure what's happening with this gyroscope, I could tell the orientation at all times, like a real-time feed of what the orientation is. Could I actually tell what someone is typing?
Yeah.
So the answer is yes. Okay. So I need to fingerprint it first. So I have to train the algorithm. So I would have to watch them and know what they're typing and learn how a particular user types and like what it does. But once I have it trained, then whatever text they type in, I can just read it off.
People
Right?
have done this?
Yeah, and people have done it and they've demonstrated that it's possible. What does your phone do in defense? So what it does is it doesn't give applications access to the gyroscope. So if you use Android in particular, they're big about permissions. So when you install an app, it's like, do you grant permission for this, permission for that? So gyroscope is one of those things that you need to ask permissions for.
It doesn't come by default.
And yeah, it doesn't come by default. And then the other thing they'll do is the operating system, even though it has very accurate gyroscope data, it can also, you can get the permission, but it will like kind of not give you the most accurate thing. It'll give you enough so that you can tell how people are twisting their screen, but it won't give you that like perfect accuracy. There's things called, or there's reflections is another thing that you can use. So like right now I'm looking at my screen. You know what's on my screen because it's behind me, but if let's say it wasn't plugged into the projector, would you know what's on my screen? So generally you can't see it directly, but you can see I'm wearing glasses. Is my screen reflected in my glasses?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
It is, yeah. If you had a very sensitive camera, not even that sensitive, and you were able to zoom in on my glasses and isolate the screen and then do some image manipulation to undistort it, could you read what's on my screen?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can. Okay. So, and there's lots of attacks like this, and
Unless you have anti-glare or something glasses.
yeah, perhaps. So there's things like that, but as long as there's any sort of kind of reflection, and so it could be like just like a teapot or something like that that's on your desk, and there's someone in the skyscraper across the, a couple of kilometers away, and they have like a telescopic lens. Researchers have demonstrated that you can get a little reflection, and then you can figure out roughly, not with like perfect fidelity, but you can sort of roughly see what people are doing on their screens just from stray signals, even from kilometers away, kind of thing. So it's not even like spy like kind of stuff. It's just like real stuff. Okay, so these are all examples of side channel analysis. It's not the things that people are thinking of when they implement programs, but the adversary doesn't care, right? The attackers are going to attack your system any way they can. They don't care. They don't have to go through the specification, right? If they can find some other way to break it, then they're going to break it as well.
How can you define side channel?
It's just basically any kind of weird way that's not directly in attacking the protocol itself. So if you think of cryptography, it's like you're not attacking the math of it. It's always an implementation specific thing, right? So whether this attack is possible, well, some ATMs it would be, some it wouldn't. So it wasn't anything with what you told the ATMs about how to write their software. It was in the ATM itself, right? And so they always show up at the implementation level itself. And the problem is the spec doesn't always tell you a lot about how to implement things. Yeah. Now they do. So like for timing in crypto, everything now is constant time. So if you start doing something and you realize it's going to fail, you keep doing it anyways so that it takes the exact same amount of time than if it didn't fail. So no one can tell the difference between the two. There's no shortcuts. There's no like, oh, this key is a little different so I can skip a bunch of steps. You're not allowed to do that anymore. So all crypto runs in constant time as we call it. Okay, other questions about side channel or anything? No? Okay, good. Then we'll see you all next week.